Thank you.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The minutes from our previously held meeting have been provided. Are there any additions or corrections?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
The motion to approve the minutes passes 13-0.
We'll now move to our public comment period. Those who have signed up to participate, I'm going to ask that you please stand at this time so that you may be sworn in by our clerk.
Could you please stand and raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you give will be the truth? If so, please say, "I do." Thank you.
Thank you. You will have 3 minutes to speak to this body. When you hear your name, you may approach the podium. We're going to begin with Margot and Toby Easterling.
Good afternoon.
Hi.
My name is Toby Easterling. I am the co-owner of a gym fitness center located in Akron, Ohio. It's called Welcome to the Pit. It's located on Buckholzer Boulevard in Akron. And the reason why we are here today is to express some concerns that we have with a neighboring business called Sweet Beats Karaoke Sports Bar. And there's a few instances that I wanted to walk through just to kind of describe some of our concerns. And hopefully, if there's any questions, we're more than happy to answer those. So the first example is there was a shooting right next door. One of their staff was a security person, and they fired some shots, and it hit one of the vehicles in the parking lot. And so the police were called. There was a police report filed. There was another instance where we had one of the people on our treadmill, and the front open space of our gym, forget the name of the floor space of our gym. There's windows, so you can see through. And it was about 1 a.m, and one of the patrons pulled right in front of the treadmill and exposed themselves to one of our members. She then filed a police report. Then there was another instance where there was an altercation at their place, and there were a number of people there, and there was a gentleman who had a security shirt on, and he was walking with an assault rifle, and he was one of their staff. And so those are 3 examples, and that doesn't include the countless times that there's a lot of glass in the parking lot, because a lot of the people that come there, they drink and they break the bottles all over the parking lot. And so some of our members have had flat tires and expressed concerns to us. And also, they park a lot in the fire lane to the point where people come out, they're smoking, they're yelling, they're making comments to a lot of the women, the female members that we have, making them uncomfortable. And they've expressed displeasure with that and have also canceled their membership. So the reason why we are here today to just express that and to communicate that to you all, and just, we feel like it puts the plaza at risk. It puts our business at risk. That's a very sensitive ecosystem to be able to run a business and have people want to come to your business, and also our members. And we just don't want anything to happen, and try to prevent that before something significantly happens, in the future. So those were our comments, but we'll open it up for questions if there are any. Not sure about the format here, but.
Well, I was going to ask, after the meeting, if you would be so kind to meet with your ward council person, Councilman Lombardo.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
All right, thank you so much for coming down and bringing that to our attention.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Next, and I apologize if I mispronounced the name, Basma.
Hello, good evening. Assalamu alaikum. May peace be upon you. I'm here to tell you how I feel about the situation in the Middle East and in my home country in Palestine. This message is to Israel and its supporters. Israel, get out of Palestine, it's not your country. Our homes and land and water are not eminent domain for the Zionist settlers and immigrants to come and take it from us, Palestinians in Palestine, and not in 48 during Nakba, not in 1967 war, or at any time after. And then to ask for help to defend yourselves. Defend yourselves against who? You are robbing us Palestinians of everything. We have nothing left. You are either killing us in cold blood, putting us in jail, torturing us slowly until we die, or letting us go out of jail handicapped, bombing our homes, burning our crops, including olive trees. You are occupying our territories. Israel, get out of Palestine. It is not your country. Go somewhere else. I'm here to tell you that Palestinians, we were living in peace prior to 1948 Nakba. The currency used was the Palestinian pound, which had the same equivalent value as the pound sterling before 1948. Palestine was home to diverse population of Arab, Muslims, Jews, and Christians, as all groups have religious ties to the Holy Land. So yeah, Israel, get out of Palestine. It is not your country. Taking Palestinian land over many decades doesn't give you the right to keep it. It is not yours. You stole my home, my land in 1967 war in Deir Bzir, west of Ramallah, while I was studying in Kuwait, and I cannot go back to it. Why most of my teachers were from 1948 Nakba, and I never questioned why they were teaching in Kuwait. Because of Nakba. There are 88 counties in Ohio. They mostly invest in Israeli bonds to bring more money back to their communities. How are you doing that? To bring money back to the community, but the money is already in Israel. Please bring it back to the community and invest it in our communities. We need it here in the US, in our communities. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing. Nasir?
Good evening, dear council members. My name is Nasser Osman, and I'm a junior at Walsh Azua High School. As a proud Arab American of Palestinian descent, I stand before you today not just as a student, but as someone with a direct personal connection to a historical tragedy that has shaped the lives of millions, including my own family. My grandparents, like many others, were expelled from their homes in Nazareth, Palestine, in 1948 during the Nakba. Forced to flee, they sought refuge in Lebanon, where they remain in refugee camps till this day. My father left those camps in order to seek a better future in America, a path of resilience and hope that I now walk on. And Nakba, or the catastrophe, was a real and devastating event, which is the care of the trauma Palestinians face today and is their violent removal from their land on May 15, 1948. An estimated 850,000 Palestinians were forcibly displaced that day, with over 500 villages destroyed or depopulated. This forced displacement is an undeniable historical fact. Jewish American scholar Norman Finkelstein said himself, "It is precisely and exactly because of the lessons my parents taught me and my two siblings that I will not be silent when Israel commits its crimes against the Palestinians," urging us to confront this ongoing injustice. Just as we rightfully teach the Holocaust in schools, we must also educate students about the Nakba. These events, while distinct, share this theme of ethnic cleansing and systematic displacement. Historian Ilan Papp, a Jewish Israeli scholar, said in his book 10 Myths About Israel, denying people the right of return to their homeland and at the same time offering this right to others who have no connection to the land is a model of undemocratic practice. By implementing a Nakba Remembrance Day and integrating this history into our curriculum, we promote awareness and ensure a balanced understanding of history. This is especially urgent today as we witness the ongoing genocide in Gaza. Innocent civilians continue to suffer mass displacement and death. This is clearly not just a Palestinian issue, this is a human issue. Just as we stand against injustices elsewhere, we must stand against the continued suffering of Palestinians. The Nakba, like the Holocaust, is a human story of displacement and injustice that transcends ethnic and religious lines. Recognizing this as a human rights issue fosters empathy and understanding. Failing to acknowledge it allows a cycle of violence to continue, as we see in Gaza today. I ask you to consider establishing a Nakba Remembrance Day in Akron and integrating this event into our educational system. By doing so, we affirm our shared humanity and ensure future generations learn the importance of justice, dignity, and peace for all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. David? What was that? David?
Distinguished Council, hello. My name is David Shutkin, and I'm a professor of education at John Carroll University, a Catholic Jesuit institution of higher education. As a Jewish person living in Northeast Ohio, I advocate for the establishment of a Nakba Remembrance Day for several reasons rooted in Jewish principles of justice, historical reflection, and a commitment to peace. The Nakba, meaning catastrophe in Arabic, refers to the mass displacement and expulsion of over 750,000 Palestinians during the 1948 Arab-Israeli War. Establishing a day of remembrance would ensure that the stories of those who were displaced and the losses endured by the Palestinian people are recognized and remembered. This is particularly important in an environment where historical narratives can often be overshadowed by more dominant perspectives, as seen in many international discussions about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Guided by the Jewish principles of chesed, loving kindness, and tzedek, justice, I am called to stand with the Palestinian people. Advocating for Nakba Remembrance Day is a way of embodying Jewish teachings about compassion and seeking justice for those that have been wronged. Jews have a long history of suffering, persecution, displacement, and tragedy, most notably the Holocaust. This shared experience of being forced from our homes inspires my empathy for those Palestinians who experienced the Nakba. As a Jewish person, I believe that acknowledging the suffering of others, even amidst the complex history of the conflict, is essential for healing and mutual recognition of humanity. The Nakba represents not only a geopolitical shift, but also a profound human rights crisis. Displacement, dispossession, and the denial of the right of return have had a long-lasting impact on Palestinian families, many of whom continue to live as refugees or in exile. Nakba Remembrance Day would highlight the ongoing violations of rights, creating space for discussions on justice and human dignity. A Nakba Remembrance Day would also foster international solidarity with the Palestinian people. In the same way that Holocaust Remembrance Days ensure that the tragedies of the past are never forgotten, a Nakba Remembrance Day could be a call to the global community to ensure that such displacement and loss never happens again. I believe that Israel's long-term security and moral standing require a more honest reckoning with the events surrounding its founding. From this perspective, acknowledging the Nakba is a necessary step toward understanding the full picture of 1948. Beyond the traditional narratives, by recognizing the trauma of the Palestinian people, this would promote greater historical awareness and pave the way for dialogue and peace. I'll end there. Thank you very much.
David, thank you so much for sharing. That concludes our public comment period. We do want to thank everyone who came down and participated. Before you, council members, is the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
The consent agenda passes 13-0.
We'll now move to our old business, planning and economic development. Councilman Fusco.
Thanks. Committee wishes to Committee wishes to take time on 7 and 8, filed 9 through and including 14. Those are the public hearings, the petitions for the public hearings, and time on the balance of the agenda.
Thank you so much. Time will be granted. That concludes our old business. We'll now move into new legislation, starting with Budget and Finance.
Item number 1, offered by Lombardo, ordinance authorizing the Director of Law or her designee to enter into a contract or contracts without the formality of publicly advertising for bids with Retzel and Andrus for the provision of professional legal services for the City of Akron and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Lombardo,
Consent agenda, please.
this item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 2, offered by Lombardo, ordinance authorizing the issuance and sale of bonds in the maximum principal amount of $17 million for the purpose of paying a portion of the city's $58,471,743.72 various purpose general obligation bond anticipation note, Series 2023 at maturity, and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Lombardo,
The committee's report is favorable, and we're asking for suspension of the rules.
are there any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
Thank you. So this authorizes the issuance and sale of the new general obligation bonds and provides funds to retire a portion of the general obligation notes issued in 2023 to various purposes of the city.
Thank you. The rules have been suspended, and the committee's report is favorable. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
This ordinance passes 13-0. Item number 3 is a substitute offered as an amendment offered by Fusco. Ordinance authorizing a conditional use to construct and operate a refuse and recycling transfer station and trash hauling business at 1400 East Archwood Avenue and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Fusco? This item will be referred.
Item number 4, offered by Fusco. Ordinance authorizing the mayor to apply for and, if awarded, accept and expend the Reconnecting Communities Pilot RCP Program Capital Construction Grant offered by the U.S. Department of Transportation to reutilize the Interbelt to reconnect West Hill to downtown Akron and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Fusco?
The request of committees for suspension of the rules with a favorable report.
Are there any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
Yes, thank you. We've all been enlightened the last few years, recognizing what had happened back in the 60s, I believe, early 70s, referencing the Interbelt, and the obvious and terrible impact it had on a black community and the community in between downtown as well as the west side. And what this would do, already the planning stages has already begun. And there's been many discussions in the community referencing this. And this funding from the federal government, from, excuse me, specifically the United States Department of Transportation would permit $10 million to come into our community. We would match that in terms of primarily infrastructure connecting that area downtown with the west side and other parts of the community. It would also help us develop that particular area too, is from what I understand. We would be matching that, I'm sure, with other funding sources over time, but the deadline is next Monday. So with that, there's a sense of urgency, and we wish nothing but luck for our city in terms of receiving these funds, and hopefully we'll be getting them, and we can continue to move forward on this. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The rules have been suspended, and the committee's report is favorable. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
This ordinance passes 13-0. Item number 5, offered by Kamer, ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service or his designee to enter into a contract or contracts after publicly advertising for bids for the replacement of the shuffleboard shade structures at Waters Park and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Kamer,
Consent agenda.
this item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 6, offered by Councilwoman Amobian, resolution acknowledging the 30th anniversary of the Violence Against Women Act and expressing support therefore and declaring an emergency.
Councilman McKittrick?
Thank you, Madam President. The committee's report's favorable. We're asking for suspension of the rules.
Are there any objections to suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
I'd like to yield to the sponsor, Councilwoman Amobian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As I was reading the information regarding the 30th anniversary of the Violence Against Women Act of 1994, I began to do some research, and what I'm really curious about as to how it's impacting the Akron Summit County area. So I will be reaching out to the Battered Women's Shelter and Victims Assistance to come and give us a report as to what's happening here. But this particular act has provided many, many resources across the nation for women that are experiencing all kinds of violence, domestic violence, same-sex couples violence, you name it. If you try to cross the state line to another state, if you have a protection order against your perpetrator, that protection order follows you there. So there are a lot of protections in this act, and I think it would be helpful just to understand how this is impacting our area. So I will be inviting them to come. But I thought at this time, for the 30th anniversary, that we should show our support for this particular act. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Are there any other comments at this time? Councilman Fusco? So we have a motion on the floor from Mayor and Council as a whole. Is there a second? And we have a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
This resolution passes 13-0.
That concludes our new legislation for this evening. We'll now move into our committee assignments. Rules, Councilman McKittrick.
2 p.m.
Public Safety, Councilman McKittrick.
2:15.
Budget and Finance, Councilman Lombardo.
3 p.m.
Parks and Recreation, Councilwoman Connor. Planning and Economic Development, Councilman Fusco. Housing and Neighborhood Assistance, Councilman Fusco. Public Service, Councilman Kamer.
2 p.m.
Health and Social Services, Councilwoman Amobian.
2:30.
Is there anything else coming before council at this time? We have a motion on the floor. If there are no objections, meeting adjourned.
This concludes the live broadcast of Akron City Council. Margot Somerville, President of Council, presiding.